Hello and welcome to SquishiVision. My name is Harris and I've just finished watching season 1, all 6 episodes of Tales of a Jedi. This is my immediate reaction to the episode. I'm not going to kind of go into too much detail around the details of the show, but this is kind of my immediate reaction. So it was a series of 6 shorts, primarily written by Dave Filoni, and essentially following both stories revolving around Ahsoka and Dooku. It wasn't as episodic or as anthology as I thought it might be. It was actually focused. It was 6 distinct episodes set in different periods of time. So they didn't really they weren't like, back to back shows, but like they kind of, well, in this, not so much with Ahsoka, but with Dooku's kind of trilogy, they were telling a 3-part story. So yeah, I mean, the first episode was Life and Death, and that was basically just a kind of I think that was probably the most anthology of this show, because it kind of didn't really show, it didn't really kind of connect that strongly to like the rest of the kind of series, but essentially it was Ahsoka being born, and a year afterwards she went on a hunting trip with her mother, which apparently is a thing their village does traditionally. Takes their newborns, the mothers take their newborns hunting when they're a year old, and I mean, that on the face of it seems kind of cool and dope, and like, yeah, strength to the mothers and all that, but hunting is dangerous. Like, do you really want to be like looking after a infant baby? I mean, it was this episode even showed that it was dangerous, because literally in the first time she takes Ahsoka hunting, and hopefully the last time, well, I don't know, maybe not considering Ahsoka survives, but Ahsoka gets almost eaten by a tiger-like creature. So which Lily is helpfully pretending to be right now. And if it was any of a child, it would be dead. But even like without like predators, if you shoot a prey and the prey survives and starts lashing out, like when you go to investigate the body and the prey starts lashing out, it's quite a dangerous situation to be in. Like, at least take someone else with you if you're going to go hunting with an infant. Just saying, it seems a bit, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's meant to be something we're all meant to like follow and like practice ourselves, but just as a tradition, it seems a bit weird. But yeah, that's basically everyone's first realization that Ahsoka is a Jedi, when the tiger basically kidnaps her, but then she's like tames the tiger and brings her back. It's a very episode light one. Ahsoka's a very cute baby. I don't really like babies, but I guess if my baby was Ahsoka, a weird sentence out loud, I'd be fine. She was very vocal, and I could feel like I could have a conversation, which is really what I kind of want in a person, and why I don't like most babies, because my inability to kind of have a conversation with them. Yeah. The next episode was Justice, and that was at the start of the Count Dooku trilogy. Dooku, and we see Qui-Gon as a Padawan, and I commented when I watched the trailers about the accents, and I was a bit on the fence about Dooku in the trailers, and in here I started that way, but actually as the episodes progressed, the voice changed, and it became by the time we saw Dooku in the last episode, which was basically the same time as the Phantom Menace, his voice was pretty much similar to Clone Wars, and very similar to Christopher Lee's voice. It was Corey Burton was doing something with the voice where it kind of progressed, and I suppose, I mean, the first time we see Dooku is probably about what, 30 odd years before we see Dooku in the film, so I guess it makes sense for the voice to be different. I don't really, Michael Richardson's voice seems too English, not enough Irish. I mean, it's odd because he's voiced by Michael Richardson, who is an Irish actor, so you expect, I don't know if that's Richardson's natural accent or what, but Liam Neeson has a very distinct, grating Irish accent, very distinct voice, and I just didn't hear that kind of, there's a kind of that growl in his accent that Richards didn't have, even tried to put into his portrayal. He just seemed to like too received. I want to say too received pronunciation. But hey, I mean, people's accents change, I guess, maybe, and it was established that Qui-Gon was born on Coruscant, so maybe, that accent thing was something that came later on, which I guess kind of makes sense. But yeah, that was an interesting episode. I mean, from the get-go, they weren't being subtle about the fact that Dooku is quite a dark Jedi. He's got he's got strong beliefs, but his methodology is very problematic. So he was in the hostage situation. He immediately, and this is consistent in the next 2 episodes, he immediately kind of emphasizes with the plight of the people, and as soon as the sentence come, he immediately goes to arms. He doesn't go for the diplomatic, political approach. He immediately kind of goes all out, attack, and in a sense gets people killed in his method, whilst Qui-Gon's strategy of releasing the hostage to defuse the situation and then working through things actually ends up working. There's a clear message there about that, and it's kind of what I would have done in the same situation. And then the next episode was called Choices, and this is a bit later on. It's just for Mace Windu becomes a member of the council, and they both basically have to go and repatriate a dead Jedi, but Dooku wants to investigate it, and Windu goes along, and it turns out that she was actually killed by soldiers of that planet because they were attempting to force the person in charge to... Well, actually, the person in charge was going to sell off the planet, and they were trying to fight against that. So again, it was actually quite a great episode in terms of they're just defending themselves, but the method was very problematic. But Dooku's I actually kind of agree with what you did. If I would have gone about it differently, but I still kind of agree, kind of deal. So that was interesting. And it was a very short episode, but it was. I mean, all these episodes are very short, but they're very, very well produced. They're very, very well filmed. I wasn't bored at any point. Visually, it looks great. There were parts where, we've come so far from the original Clone Wars film. There's a lot of nuance in the animation, so they can just not really do things, but you don't have to rely on voice acting. You can actually just rely on things like facial expression. And we obviously love that kind of Dooku's opinions were signed very clearly. And that was great to see. And you could even I like the ending where you could tell he was a bit miffed off that excuse me, fart. Nope, didn't come. Hang on. Oops. There we go. He's miffed off that he wasn't put on the council, which is odd because he didn't seem like the kind of person who would be pro being on council, but I guess he kind of wants to try fix from the inside, and now he's been given a nice opportunity, and that kind of explains the spiral. And then the next episode is interesting timeline wise, so I don't know if this is established elsewhere. I think it has been. From the films, you might assume that Dooku joined Palpatine after Maul, the whole rule of 2 kind of being, because I mean, whatever, but this establishes that Dooku had already kind of joined Sidious whilst Maul was still around. I mean, I do recall some canon that has actually established that Sidious was still with his master Plagueis whilst he had Maul, and that he kills Sidious during the event. So he kills Plagueis during the events of the Phantom Menace, whereas, sorry, I was finished eating dinner, so I've got a lot of gas. Whereas if you watch the films, you would have thought Sidious was in power a long time. But yeah, this establishes that there were actually 3 Sith Lords during that time, and one died very quickly. But this might establish that there was as much as perhaps 4 at a time, because Sidious was playing with Maul and Dooku at the same time. I mean, this might match up actually with what we know about the clones. I'm not entirely sure, but this would seem to imply that he's already killed Sif Deyas and ordered the clones at the same time I mean, I guess Maul didn't know about that. We already know Maul knows about the plan. So yeah, it's just like, basically the whole timeline is like much more condensed than I thought. Again, none of this might be entirely new. I know, you know, I know the fact that Plagueis was around when Maul was something I didn't initially assume, but now I've kind of realized. But I guess I don't know if it was being established before by just maths or explicitly that Dooku was around when Maul was. I guess the fact that he knows that Sidious was responsible via Maul for Qui-Gon's death does make the kind of becoming a Sith Lord himself a bit more bizarre. But I guess, you know, that's kind of how the Sith works consistently. They kind of get you to pervert your own morals for the greater good. So even though he was like pissed off that Qui-Gon got killed, he still was willing to go with it because he, I guess, was still thinking, well, at least we're going to make some change here, and you know, these are just the costs of that. But yeah, and we also finally find out what happens to Yaddle, and Yaddle gets killed by Dooku when Yaddle spies on them, and then, you know, rather than sneaking off and telling everyone, hey, Sidious is a thing and Dooku is in league with Sidious, she immediately kind of outs herself, and you know, she was never going to survive that, because even if Dooku failed, Sidious would have killed her. I wonder how they explain that, because Dooku must have left the, because Qui-Gon dies almost, and then the exact same day Qui-Gon dies, Yaddle disappears. Shortly after, Dooku leaves, and no one was at all suspicious in Attack of the Clones that Dooku might be a bit sus. That's the one thing which seems odd to me. I think, you know, if it was a bit later on or whatever, then maybe, or if it was the timing was a bit more spread out, but it all seemed very much in the same kind of ballpark, which is, I guess, the one thing which one thing plot wise I wasn't quite on board with. And then we have two Ahsoka episodes. One, I wasn't quite sure what the narrative, the plot, or the message was, but essentially it was a Skywalker putting Ahsoka through a bunch of kind of, we're going to keep stunning you until you can like survive long enough. And it does work, because we see her initially try it, then we jump forward to middle of Clone Wars where she's still doing some exercise and she's lasting longer, and then she kind of jumps forward to, then we jump forward to basically the same day that Order 66 happens, and it kind of pays off there in a sense, because we know she is able to escape multiple kind of clones shooting at her, and presumably this is all down to kind of her experience with exercise. But I don't know what the kind of message is meant to be. I mean, I guess it was meant to be what Skywalker said about, I'm putting you through your paces here because this is my only way of protecting you kind of deal. I'm not sure really that's how, I guess, kind of very much a be cruel to be kind ethos, which I don't really agree with, but whatever. And then we had the final episode, didn't we? And the final episode was essentially establishing how Ahsoka became Fulcrum, how she got to know, or how she's got recruited by Bail Organa. She snuck and visited Padme's funeral, and at that point Bail Organa gave her a contact thing, and then a couple of years later she's hiding in a farmer. She actually outs herself, and this kind of links to Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series, when the quiz is like Jedi can't help out themselves, because they will inevitably want to help people, and that kind of outs them, and she does that and she gets outed. And it's actually quite depressing, and Inquisitor comes and basically massacres everyone in the village, like everyone she's been spending all this time with, except two people who he's about to kill before she arrives. And it's great because it's like the Inquisitor has this very like kind of intimidating appearance, like a really foreboding appearance. It's built up, you're expecting it to be this kind of massive, well choreographed fight scene, and he basically just completely overestimates Ahsoka, tries to kill her. Ahsoka basically just grabs the slice out of his hand and immediately beheads him, and it is great. Like it's not anticlimactic at all. I'm on the fence about the final Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Darth Maul fight. I've come to appreciate it more cinematically and creatively and referentially, but part of me still like, I wish it was a bit more drawn out, you know. But this was just fantastic. This was just subversion, and I absolutely love it. So yeah, this was a very interesting series. I think it works on streaming sites have short things like this, because you can just watch it as like, and actually fair. It worked well as like one. It could have been just like one short, an hour and a half film, and it would work as like a plot wise. Like you wouldn't even have to do much editing. It would work. It works in one sitting. I even like sometimes like that's why I have the list of episodes up on my screen, because I think even like trying to remember back, I'm kind of trying to remember where one episode ended and one didn't, especially with the Dooku trilogy. And the Dooku trilogy kind of works as one single kind of episode. But equally on streaming, by splitting it up, you basically, if someone didn't want to watch it all in one go, they could very easily just like watch it bit by bit and not lose anything. So yep, that's my thoughts. I have to bounce because I have to do my Duolingo in the next 5 minutes, so I'm going to bounce here. But before I go to bed, I'm going to play around with Flight Simulator 2020. I'm going to try to, it's the first time I'm streaming it, so I might have to do a bit of setup. But we're going to do that first, and then I'm going to go to sleep because going through some life things and I'm feeling quite depressed. So anyway, I'll see you shortly on my gaming channel.